I have often thought about the issues of the thought of Chinese painting since 1980s. At that time, my wife Jinling and I made a trip to the northwest of China. We climbed to the top of Kunlun Mountain, which we would treat as a journey tracing back to our origins. I am neither an art historian nor a historical commentator, but should count as a Chinese painter. Therefore, from the perspective of a painter, I think about the literary mind of Chinese painting, which is the same as in the book of using the literary mind to carve dragons, also is the topic of the inner beauty of the painting. Speaking of the inner beauty, during the northern and southern dynasties, Liu Shai lived through 3 dynasties, and at last lived in Liang dynasty in his later years. He is the author of Using the Literary Mind to Carve Dragons, which I believe many people already read. In the first chapter, Original Way, he changed the root of heaven and earth in the Tao Te Ching to the heart of heaven and earth. When I read it at that time, I had a strong feeling. Lao Tzu proposed the root of heaven and earth. However, when it came to using the literary mind to carve dragons, Liu Xie changed it to the heart of heaven and earth, which was an enlightenment of Chinese philosophy of the mind and was included by the Neo-Confucianism school of the Song dynasty. Lu Jiuyuan said, "My heart is the universe, and the universe is my heart," which is also related to this point. Therefore, Lu Jiuyuan also developed a theoretical enlightenment of the Neo-Confucianism school of the Song dynasty. From ancient times to the present, Chinese like to make their own choices between heaven and earth. I believe this is a particularly important topic, which is also the characters of Chinese. In the Tao Te Ching has a statement for this topic. Lao Tzu said, "In the universe, the 4 are great. Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and human being is also great." I have been thinking about this for a long time. How can human compare with heaven and earth? In fact, Lao Tzu talked about many issues in the I Ching, Book of Changes. For example, the unique thinking form of heaven's movement is ever vigorous. So must a gentleman ceaselessly strive along for self-improvement, which are just like either a heavenly horse flying across the sky with unbelievable speed, or the galloping horse treads on a flying swallow. Both surpass the constraints of actual matters or things, and represent a kind of spiritual highland of Chinese culture. In fact, this is a big topic. If we talk about it, it will take a long time to discuss it. The topic of tracing the origins of Chinese painting refers to the thinking form of Xiang rather than the logically beauty of form. Xiang thought. Its essence is a matter of inner beauty. Chinese painting is a spiritual highland center with the Xiang as the core part when interpreting the Chinese civilization, and it is in essence to pursue the inner beauty. The painter, through his eyes, will interpret the Xiang and the visual form. The Xiang will reach the broader realm from releasing the constraints of the visual form and entering the spiritual highland. Therefore, the pursuit of Chinese painters is not to repeat models of the physical world, but to express the Xiang. In other words, the visual form is just an entry point to form a more completed spiritual world. This is the same as Xie said. In more than 1,000 years ago, Xie of the Southern Qi dynasty wrote a book 6 rules for judging Chinese paintings. Inside, he authored an article of the classification of painters. He mentioned one term, only talk about the Xiang but not talk about the matter. It means do not talk about the specific thing, but talk about the Xiang. This Xiang is the enlightenment of the Chinese civilization, Xiang thought. Confucius explained the I Ching, set a precedent for how to interpret a painting and how to set up requirements for a painting. He only talked about the hexagram of the Xiang. I wonder if you have noticed or not, in each of his hexagram statements, the first word in the beginning is always Xiang says. For example, he said, Xiang says, "Heaven's movement is ever vigorous, so must a gentleman ceaselessly strive along for self-improvement." In front of his statement is Xiang says. I have been thinking about Xiang says for a long time. It cannot count only in years, because I have read the I Ching long ago. But what is Xiang? I have looked through many literatures, or read the I Ching, but find no answer about what Xiang is. When Confucius reads the I Ching, There was a very famous legend that Confucius reads the I Ching in the leather binding of the bamboo scroll, has broken 3 times. That is, when he read the I Ching repeatedly, the bamboo slips turn over and over. Therefore the ropes are broken several times. Then he threaded the ropes and read the I Ching again. But he did not explain specifically to his descendants what xiang is. However, to my understanding, it is a complete form of thinking for the enlightenment of Chinese civilization, which I call its xiang thought. When Confucius explained the I Ching, in fact, the hexagram of xiang had its historical content, but the historical facts were mostly omitted. This is equivalent to what Xie said, only talk about the xiang but not talk about the matter, which is the highest standard for evaluating Chinese paintings. When Xie evaluates a painting, if a painting reached the above-mentioned standard, which means the painter also meets the standard that he owns the first best characters among all. From Confucius' interpretation of the I Ching, we can also get a verification, because after concealing this specific historical fact, we can then focus on raising this cognition to a spiritual level as it in making a model for representing heaven and earth. Therefore, the I Ching is not a history book, but a guide directing to how a person to fulfill his life goals in a spiritual highland.